This is one of those questions that sounds almost too obvious to ask until you actually start digging into the specifics. And then it turns into one of the most genuinely fascinating rabbit holes in human history. Picture a group of ancient humans gathered around a fire on a chilly night, their stomachs rumbling audibly in the silence. Their day's hunt had come up empty. With no guarantee of food tomorrow, how did they endure this hunger? And perhaps more intriguingly, why did they develop such diverse methods to manage it across different eras and geographies? Do ancient humans truly have unique evolved strategies for managing hunger that differ from our own? And if so, why does this pattern manifest so consistently throughout different human societies across history and prehistory? The first concept we need to explore is periodic fasting, sometimes referred to by anthropologists as cyclic intake strategy. This involves intentionally abstaining from food during certain periods to manage resources. Mechanically, it helps conserve energy and allows the body to adjust to scarcity by entering a state of ketosis, where it burns stored fat for fuel. A vivid example comes from the Inuit of the Arctic, where food scarcity during harsh winters forced communities to fast periodically. This not only helped them survive until hunts were successful, but also enhanced their metabolic efficiency. Archaeological evidence suggests that such fasting could last up to 4 weeks, a testament to their adaptability. The Inuits' ability to endure this period relied on their profound understanding of their environment and their body's limits, often weaving fasting practices into their social and spiritual lives. Another example is found among Australia's Aboriginal people, who practiced deliberate fasting during dry seasons when food sources were limited. Here, fasting could stretch up to 2 or 3 weeks, supported by a highly efficient fat metabolism that was tuned to their arid environment. This practice was more than just a survival mechanism. It was deeply embedded in their cultural rituals, often aligning with traditional ceremonies that emphasized cooperation and community cohesion. This sounds like it completely contradicts the idea that fasting is a voluntary choice. Yet evidence shows that even when food was available, fasting still occurred. It turns out that cyclic intake wasn't just about necessity. It was also about cultural practices and spiritual beliefs. In some cultures, fasting was a ritual that encouraged resilience and community bonding, reframing fasting not just as a survival strategy, but as a pivotal social institution. So, while periodic fasting helped ancient humans handle hunger, it also reflected deeper societal values beyond mere survival. How did ancient humans ensure they could endure long stretches without food in the first place? One answer lies in what's called adaptive storage, or more scientifically, preemptive caloric surplus strategy. This involves accumulating extra body fat during times of abundance to draw upon during scarcity. Mechanically, this mirrors what we see in hibernating animals, who prepare for lean times by building up reserves. The Neolithic villages of Çatalhöyük, in what is now Turkey, offer a vivid example. Analysis of bone isotopes from up to 7,000 years ago indicates that individuals often had increased fat reserves in late summer and autumn, when harvests were plentiful, only to draw them down through the lean winter months. This strategic fat accumulation wasn't random, but a calculated response to the cyclical nature of their agricultural outputs, ensuring that the community could weather the harsher seasons. Similarly, the Hadza, a modern-day foraging tribe in Tanzania, still follows such adaptive strategies. Though they consume rich diets during the wet season when fruits are plentiful, they naturally gain weight, forming reserves that help them through the dry season when hunting challenges increase. The Hadza's practice extends beyond mere physical preparation, forming a cornerstone of their social structure, where sharing and communal living reinforce the collective success during less bountiful times. But wait, this seems to contradict the notion that ancient people were always lean and agile, as popular imagination suggests. Yet the existence of adaptive storage underscores that these societies had to balance the need for mobility with the necessity of enduring periods of famine. It's a fascinating reminder that what we perceive as health today is culturally and historically contingent. The need for adaptive storage emphasizes the broader truth that ancient humans were deeply attuned to the cyclical ebbs and flows of their environments. But how did they actually plan for these cycles? Enter environmental forecasting, or what we can term predictive ecological strategy. This is the ability to anticipate ecological changes and plan for them, a skill that required acute environmental awareness and pattern recognition. Take, for instance, the people of ancient Mesopotamia, who meticulously tracked the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates. Their ability to predict these events, often with upwards of a 70% accuracy rate, was essential for planning agricultural cycles and ensuring food security through lean months. They achieved this through generations of careful observation and the development of a sophisticated lunar calendar system that allowed them to predict flood timings with remarkable precision. Another example is found with the ancient Maya, who used sophisticated observations of the stars to predict seasonal changes. They developed complex calendars that allowed them to optimize planting and harvest times, thereby avoiding periods when food scarcity was most likely. Their advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge enabled them to create a calendar system that accounted for the solar year with astounding accuracy, guidelining not only agricultural activities, but also cultural and religious events. This might seem at odds with the idea that ancient societies lived from hand to mouth, but it reveals that they engaged in complex knowledge systems. By understanding their environment, they mitigated risks and managed resources more effectively. Environmental forecasting highlights how ancient humans used knowledge as a tool for survival. But how did this knowledge get passed down reliably across generations? Here we have intergenerational wisdom transfer, also known as the cultural continuity framework. This concept is all about the mechanisms ancient societies used to transmit knowledge about food procurement and survival strategies from one generation to the next. In Papua New Guinea, oral traditions among the Highlands tribes include detailed narratives about planting cycles and hunting techniques, some based on observations made centuries ago. These stories, often detailed to the minute, are shared in communal gatherings and had ensured agricultural success for countless generations. The precision and consistency of these narratives are maintained through communal rituals and storytelling sessions, where elders actively engage the youth, ensuring the accuracy of knowledge through iterative recitation and social reinforcement. Similarly, the San people of southern Africa maintain a rich tradition of storytelling that encodes detailed knowledge about edible plants, animal behaviors, and seasonal migrations. Studies show that the average San child is exposed to over 200 distinct plant and animal stories by age 12. These stories are not only educational, but form a critical component of the social fabric, with community status often tied to one's knowledge and ability to recount these narratives correctly. One might assume this reliance on storytelling would lead to the dilution of factual accuracy, yet anthropologists have found these narratives to be remarkably stable over generations. The apparent contradiction is resolved by understanding that these oral traditions are often subject to rigorous social checks and balances, maintaining their integrity through mechanisms such as community reviews and corrections during public storytelling events. The role of intergenerational wisdom transfer emphasizes the profound importance of culture in managing hunger, reinforcing that survival was as much about learning and teaching as it was about raw survival skills. But what role did communal living play in these strategies? Let's discuss communal resource sharing, or the collective survival model. This is where members of a community pool resources and distribute them according to need, ensuring that all have a better chance of surviving tough times. For instance, the Iroquois Confederacy practiced a system where food stores were collectively managed, with surpluses from successful hunts shared communally. Archaeological finds indicate these shared stores could sustain a community through an entire winter, often containing over a ton of preserved meat. This system not only safeguarded against individual misfortune, but also fostered a strong sense of unity and interdependence within the community. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, granary records from around 2500 BC reveal that pharaohs maintained public storage depots, from which rations were distributed during famines, sometimes sustaining populations for up to 6 months. These reserves were strategically placed to cover the expanse of the Nile Valley, acting as a central part of the socio-political structure that bound the Egyptian civilization together under the divine rule of the pharaohs, who were seen as providers and protectors of their people. This might appear to clash with the idea of the survival of the fittest scenario, yet data shows that communal sharing was a practical response to environmental unpredictability. By pooling resources, communities could buffer against individual losses, enhancing the overall resilience of the group. Communal resource sharing illustrates how cooperation was integral to survival, completing our exploration of ancient hunger management. Which brings us back to that group huddled around the fire. How did their collective approach allow them to cope with hunger's harshest realities? By understanding strategies like periodic fasting, adaptive storage, environmental forecasting, intergenerational wisdom transfer, and communal resource sharing, we see that ancient humans didn't just suffer hunger. They mastered it through a rich tapestry of cultural and biological adaptations. It turns out the firelight wasn't just a symbol of warmth, but a beacon of human ingenuity and resilience in the face of scarcity.